Islam, Islam, Islam. Paradigm shifting the podcast. The brother Maurice Pennington Bay, along with the brother Shay right here. Moorish
Islam.
master students. Islam, Islam. How you doing, Moab?
Man, all praise be to Allah, all is well. Honest to the Prophet, Noble Drew Ali, honest to the forerunner of the Prophet, Brother Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And I give honors to man. When man honors man, he honors Allah. And a special honors to Brother Maurice Pennington Bay, master student.
Islam.
Here we are again.
Islam.
Here we are again. It's a blessing.
Islam. So today we want to talk about, studying and why it's important, mastering the art of learning, because learning is an art to learn. I wouldn't
That's right.
before joining the Moorish Science Temple of America, I didn't really understand that it was a whole lot more to studying than just, reading a book or listening to somebody give a lecture about a thing. It's very important that we actually dig deep into the concepts of the, that the instructor or that the author or that the creator of the material is providing to us, so that we can learn to embody those concepts for ourselves and to call those concepts into action when we need them. That's the most important thing. If a thing that we learning is not, we can't use it in our real life, yeah,
Right.
it has no value for real. So Islam.
Islam. I mean, there's a few errors that are made in our presumption that we're actually participating in what we call study, and it usually amounts to just the acquisition of information. A lot of times when you tell people to study, they feel like their job now is to go out and acquire as much information as possible. And that's only part of it. It's kind of like if you said you were hungry and I said, well, go out and acquire food, or at least what you consider food, because a lot of things aren't truly food at all. But in any case, if I told you to go out and acquire food and you went out and did so, and let's say you even got the best of foods, fruits, vegetables, so forth and so on, and now they are sitting in your refrigerator, or even worse, you got perishables just sitting on the counter. So now you have acquired them, but your body is not, you're not performing in a manner that makes it so that your body can now start to extract the vital nutrients and minerals of that which you acquired, because a lot of time we don't realize this. Hunger for the physical body and hunger for the soul is the same. Hunger for the physical body isn't merely a desire to taste something. Hunger for the physical body is a fact when the body is sending out signals that it's lacking vital nutrients and minerals to feed the vital organs and to make the organism run in an orderly fashion. Like so, the soul is, it calls out for things. A soul filled with ignorance or lack of education is never satisfied. And so there's always an urging from within that you go and acquire and assimilate knowledge and information. But a lot of brothers and sisters, unfortunately, because they don't necessarily know how to study, they usually are satisfied or fall complacent in the acquiring information part. And so hopefully Allah willing, we'll be able to share some ideas here this evening that will cause people to consider the fact that there's more to it than just reading a whole lot of books or just reading for long periods of time and memorization. It's more to it than that, because I like to try to stay away from the A and C type of educating, where A is you say the issue. The issue is we need to study.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Well, Islam, the issue is that we haven't studied enough. C is we need to study enough. And the B part is, well, how? How do we study so that I can actually receive the benefits of that which we're calling study? Islam.
You just said something, and that's very important. You talked about, studying is just simply not reading for long periods of time. Well, just reading for long periods of time is actually counterproductive, to learn. you know, because the mind or the average, you know, the average individual, and you know, even those individuals who are above average, you know, the mind has a cutoff point when it comes to processing information. And for optimal processing of information, you want to like cut the study periods into portions that you can actually digest. So it's more it's what I learned, you know, in studying mnemonics, you know, memorization techniques, and this is actually, you know, absorbing information. You want to study, or if you want to read for about 25 minutes, you want to take a 5 to a 10-minute break, and then you read for 25 more minutes if you want to, or you can even wait till tomorrow. But the key is you can actually remember the entire, you know, amount of information that you read in 25 minutes. Whereas if you get to going beyond 50 minutes and an hour, then you start to forget the middle. You know, we tend to remember what was at the beginning and what was at the end, but we start to fail to recall the middle portion. So for optimal learning, you want to actually not just sit there and read for long periods of time. You know, that's very important. You know, so.
Also, is another thing like when you say like you know, establishing something in the memory. You know, when we start reading, okay, that's like going. And I like to kind of compare this to foods and what the body consumes, because at the end of the day, study is basically, you know, you being your soul's nutritionist. You know, because what you're doing is you're supplying the body of soul with food for thought processing. Okay, this is what study doing. Not only are you doing that, you're also not only supplying it, but you're storing it away in memory. Would be the same as coming home from the market with the goods and then placing it in the refrigerator or the freezer, where you can actually keep it for long periods of time until you are able to actually consume the food. Because I mean, everything we buy from the grocery store, you know, I don't know about anybody else, but I can spend somewhere between, you know, 50 to $100 or more, you know, because the prices of things have gone up. But so I'm not going to consume all that within a 24, 48, 72 hour period. So things have to be refrigerated, and some things even frozen to guarantee its freshness when I actually get to it. Like so, when we're reading, all right, which is part of study, you know what I'm saying? And of course, we may, I don't know if we may or may not go into the nature of this word read, because it definitely goes deeper than running your physical eyes over ink on paper. But when we are reading, here we are in the grocery store. And then when we use the hammer in the workshop of the mind, and we go over things until some of the information becomes a part of every part of the inner workings of the soul, or the inner workings of our thought processes, our understanding, our reasoning, you know what I'm saying, that which motivates us to use our will in certain ways, things of that nature. When we start to remember it, that's the same as storing it, okay? And then when we pull it out and cook it up, this right here is a process that happens during what a lot of the Moors would call reflection.
Islam.
Okay. And reflection is usually activated in the process of meditation. In this process of meditating upon what it is that we've actually stored, in this process of meditation, we're cooking it up, we're getting it ready, and we're actually consuming it. It puts us in a position where we can actually reach into what we've stored away, wrap our mental hands around the vital nutrients and minerals within what we've stored away, and actually start to consider the inimitable perfections of Allah, the truth of the matter at hand. And so, you know, it's the acquisition of information, it's the proper storage of information. All right. And by proper storage, of course, we have to sift through things, because it ain't healthy to memorize everything. Okay. We're not just grabbing any information, right? And then it's, you know what I mean, cooking it up, you know what I mean, proper preparation of it, of the meal, of the information. So you place yourself in a certain mindset. We call it meditation. And then while in that meditation, we start reflecting carefully considering certain aspects of the information, and that amounts to the actual consumption, actually putting it in the soul's mouth and starting the digestive process. A lot of us have so much information but are not actually consuming it, and this is why people seem to know better but don't go better, because you merely have it. And as the Prophet Noble Drew Ali instructs, it isn't in having a whole lot of information. And I'm paraphrasing because he didn't use the term information. He said it isn't in having a thing, but the knowing to use it properly. Well, that squares what we're saying here. It isn't in just having a whole lot of information, but in knowing how to convert that information into usable power, okay, for proper expression of the God within you. Islam.
I want to give honor to the Sheikh D. Robinson Bey. You know, he was my first teacher when I came into the Moorish Science Temple of America. And you know, the Moor was extremely practical about Moorish science. You know, like we would study Holy Quran, and when we read the instructions, you know, he'd ask us questions, you know, continuously. You know, he'd say, hey, well, what does that instruction mean? And he made it plain from day one that the meaning of each instruction had to be able to be applicable to our lives. You understand me? And he would say, hey, if this Quran does not put food on the table, if this Quran does not solve the issues that we face every day, then we're going to take this Quran and throw it in the trash because the information in it is not useful. You know, so what that did was it made me then, you know, look for how I might be able to use this each and every single instruction, either right now or in the future. You know, and it's challenging at first because we have not been taught to approach learning, especially learning spiritual things that way. All right, learning the scripture. You know, how do we actually apply the scripture to our everyday lives? You know, you have so many people, you know, so many of us, you know, who we know these instructions, like we are familiar with them, but we are not familiar with how to use them, or even that they need to be used. Like you said, the Prophet Noble Ali teaches us in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, in the chapter "The Soul of Man." He said the advantage lieth not in the possession of good things, but in the knowing to use these things. Right. So we can have the things, and we do have it. Every single solitary Moorish American has their Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Every single solitary Christian has their Holy Bible. You know, every Muslim all over the world have the revealed word of Allah. We have these things in our possession, but then when life throws obstacles before us, we forget that we have instructions to help guide us through these obstacles, to help us to overcome these things. You know, when we go to sleep at night and we have dreams, you know, we have dreams when we go to sleep. You know, wherefore to thee alone speak shadows in the visions of the pillow. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali tells us to reverence our dreams. Because we go to sleep at night and we dream, we see futures that are better than our present. All right. Those futures that are better than our present are in our minds and in our hearts, allowing us to know that we can actually have this future.
That's right.
And then we have the instructions to help guide us to these futures. But we have not been taught to study, to digest these instructions so that we can actually be like the brother right here, Roscoe Jackson Neal says, be what you know, Muslim. All right. So the whole object of learning is to be what you know. You understand what I'm saying? That's the whole object. So when the prophet Jesus, when he showed up in Persepolis, you know, when they said a master from the Royal Council of the Brotherhood has come, they asked him what message did he bring. You know, he made it clear and plain to them that I am the message that I bring. I am the lesson. I am the instruction. I am the example. You know, this comes from me learning as a child, applying what I learned as a child in my adulthood throughout the course of my ministry, coming to manifest all that I had been taught. Not only all that I have been taught, but all that my predecessors have been taught. You see, because instructions was given to his parents for him.
Right.
You know, we acknowledge that Elihu and Salome taught Mary and Elizabeth, but Joseph learned carpentry from someone, probably his father.
That's
And
right.
he communicated these same instructions to his child. And his child was able to take carpentry to a whole nother level. He said, these tools remind me of the ones we had to in the workshop of the mind. This is where we take learning to a whole nother level. Whereas Moorish scientists, okay, the whole entire goal of the Moorish scientists when it comes to learning is to learn how to use the mind the way that they use their hands. We know how to use our hands. We reach out, we grasp things, we bring things to our mouth, we set things down, we pull things, we push things. Well, we need to learn how to use our mind to do these same things.
That's right.
Okay. This is why Allah sent us an entire prophet. He sent us a whole prophet to instruct us in the way of what? Exalting thy mind. Teaching benevolence, and his mind shall be exalted. The mind, he said, he hath exalted thy mind with the powers of meditation. Okay. The attainment of virtue, he accounteth as the highest learner. The wise man cultivates his mind with knowledge. He gave us all the principles of learning: obedience, modesty, gratitude, charity.
That's right.
He gave us all the principles of learning. All right. We have them. Do we know to use them? That's where the value, that's where the advantage lies in knowing to use this stuff. All right.
Islam. Penitent Bay, one of the things that I give honors to the Prophet for the information that he brought, and all praise be to Allah for the gifts of the understanding. One of the things I've come to realize is that, like our Holy Quran and the Moorish Science Temple of America expresses in chapter 1, where it says, man is a seed of Allah. Okay. And like a seed, we still have to unfold certain potentials. We haven't unfolded to the fullest of our potentials. And so the attributes of Allah are within us. Okay. And the attributes of Allah that are within us are like seeds as well, because our attributes are thoughts of Allah. In the Moorish Science Temple of America, we liken seeds and thoughts. Okay. And so these attributes within us, which are seeds, okay, they need the same thing that a seed in the physical manifest would need. It needs, a cultivated soil. We've got that already, all right, because the soul is the most fertile soil known to man. And even in the bosom of a fool, it remains perfect. So, and then we need water, which is actually symbolic of purity. This is why the Prophet Noble Drew Ali instructed us to keep our hearts and minds pure.
With love.
Okay, with love. Okay, and that acts as the water. And then we need light, just as the soil for a physical seed needs, because the light interacts with the minerals of the soil, which sends electromagnetic pulses, which is information that comes through the ethers, that helps the seed unfold. Like so, we have to supply light to the seeds of attributes within ourselves. This light is symbolic of the truth. And so we have to be seekers of that water. We have to be seekers of that light. And when I say seeking, that translates as the Prophet Noble Drew Ali instructed that we needed to be active, not passive. We can't sit around and wait for something or someone outside of ourselves to save us, meaning we can't sit still and be inactive and think that someone outside of us will come and salvage our living spirit from a dead state of mind.
That's right.
Okay. We actually grow like seeds. We grow out of states of mind. And that growth and development, like seeds, demands a certain condition. It demands a context wherein this growth and development can take place. This context is created during the course of true study. And this is why it's so important, Brother Penitent Bay. This is why I give honors to brothers like yourself that are doing these podcasts. This is why it's so important for someone who has not all of the answers, but some degrees, some gifts of understanding that they can communicate to the ignorant for their instruction and communicate to the wise for their own improvement. Okay. And so, the hope is that we might put out there some ideas, aka food for thought, where if someone would consume this food, they can start a digestive process of something that has that truly has vital nutrients and minerals conducive for the growth and development of our seeds of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and other attributes, other powers of man. Because a lot of times, Penitent Bay people don't know that these things, these words that we're using every day and take for granted, the meanings of these words are actually powers of man.
That's right.
Understanding is a power.
Right.
Belief is a power.
That's
Faith
right.
is a power.
That's right.
Okay, and so these things are developed just like seeds. They need water, meaning purity of heart. So you can't be the most negative and hope to unfold the seed of positivity. And these things come on the wings of study, which Allah willing we'll get into even further about defining this, because there's some I've invented some acronyms and things of that nature to assist brothers and sisters that may be listening with some things to consider in order to enter into a school of thought, where they can actually develop themselves. But again, it takes a certain context, a certain type of condition for any seed to truly unfold. And study is like putting the construction crew to work.
That's right.
To build the school, Islam.
I remember when I first came into the Moorish Science Temple of America, and I first started to study Holy Quran, and I was coming into the temple with a damaged brain because I drank a lot. I consumed an extreme amount of alcohol. I smoked a whole lot of weed. And I popped a lot of ecstasy pills. Like I popped a lot of ecstasy pills. I OD'd a few times on ecstasy. Like I popped a lot of ecstasy pills. So my brain had the function of my brain was absolutely damaged. I noticed it because when those same study sessions that I would have with the brother Robinson Bay and other Moors, who we studied with, I would read an instruction from the Quran, and the second that I finished saying, the last word of whatever portion I was reading, it would just go away. And so for me to try to give you my portion on it, I could not even recall what I had read, So there was a desire in me, though. I desired to know this. So I had to make a decision. And this is something else when it comes to learning, the principles, like I like to say, I don't say that these are the principles of learning. These are some of the principles of learning. Okay. He say obedience, modesty, gratitude, charity. Upon the 12-step ladder, these are the first 4 steps for a child to take. So the first step being obedient. Okay. So in order for me to be obedient, I have to be able to at least process a command. So I had to make a decision. Do I want to continue to smoke and drink and do all of these things that are disallowing me to be able to learn? So I had to stop. Right. I had to make that decision. You know what? I want this more than I want to be high, than I want to avoid life. I know that when I stop drinking, when I stop getting high, I'm going to have to face life. I'm going to have to face some things mentally that I had been ducking for a long time. But I believe that this information that I want so bad is going to see me through this, so I made that choice first. Okay. Then you have to be humble. All right. You have to be humble. You have to be humble to the instructor, to the teacher, to the author, to everybody, because as we start to, believe that learning is important, then we realize that we learn from everybody and everything around us. There's no one who does not have the ability to teach you something. Like, I'm not one of those people who feel like I know everything. I know that without a doubt or a contradiction that all human knowledge is knowledge that is ever evolving, because everything within the scope of our physical senses is ever changing. And anytime that a thing is going through changes, that means there's still more always to learn about the thing. And then it gets even deeper than that. So first it started with me, wanting to learn more science, wanting to learn the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, the 101s, and then came the 102s, and then came the Moorish literature pamphlet. All of the articles and all of the corporate, laws and stuff by which the Moorish Science Temple of America has been established. All of this knowledge. So with every new thing, because a whole new body of knowledge, when you start studying the Quran, there are words in the Quran, there are concepts in the Quran, and there are places in the Quran. Their origin is not here where our language and what we are used to. This is not the same. So when I'm reading Sanskrit and it gets to talking about Orisa and it's talking about Katak, and that's all of those places is not the same as this place. Those people did not think, they did not talk the same way that we do here. So in order for me to understand what the prophet Jesus was actually going through, who he was actually around, I have to study the history of that place. I have to begin to start to understand their linguistics of that place so that I can apply that to my learning to make these things applicable today. Okay,
that's right.
When the prophet Jesus, when he starts to go into Persepolis, that's Persia. Now, when you start getting over there, the Persians are different. The Magians, they have a whole different body of science, So now I got to try to understand, well, what it is that these people were teaching. What were they doing? What did they mean by that when they said that? When the prophet Jesus says to Barada Arabo, enlighten the Arabo, are you not a mastermind who knows that a man knows not by being told? He didn't use enlighten in the same way that we would today, where it wouldn't carry as much weight. Back then, it carried a lot of weight.
That's right.
Because an enlightened one is a Buddha. So he's speaking to this man. He's reminding this man of his title and of his responsibility. You have to be more responsible when you open your mouth and communicate something that you think is true. You need to know it's true, because when you start talking, you a Buddha. People think that you know what you're talking about. You understand what I'm saying? So he was reminding him that. And not only was he reminding him of who he was, he reminded him of what he was. Okay? So without me knowing the gravity of that particular term in that time, the instructions that followed would not have the same meaning that they do to me today. When we talk about the friendship of Lamas and Jesus, if I didn't know that Lamas was not a name, Lamas is actually a title, which means guru. If I didn't know that Jesus was actually speaking to a guru, and then what a guru is to the Indian people. A guru is not a person. A guru is not a title. A guru is an energy. It is a spirit. It is something that is absolutely divine, that manifests within the bodies and the forms of humankind.
Islam. So now you have to say what happens. So what happens to your soul when you start to consider those meanings?
There lies the origin of this podcast, the importance of studying
Islam,
because your paradigm shifts.
Islam.
The concept of yourself, it shifts. Okay, there's a change. We from the streets, we from the ghetto, where Jesus was too.
That's right.
Just that particular knowledge allows for the paradigm to shift. Because some think and believe that we are too lowly to have an exalted mind. And when I say exalted means elevated, it means lifted up beyond what? The average, and even beyond. Our mind, we are taught in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, in the beginning, in the very first paragraph of the very first chapter, that no finite mind can comprehend things infinite. Okay, no finite mind can comprehend things infinite. And then we are taught in following paragraphs of the same chapter that man, you and I, we are finite things. We are infinite things.
That's right.
Okay, the life of man at no time began. It never began. Okay, we are spirits and a part of Allah, which means that we always were. So we are infinite things. And if we are to comprehend ourselves, if Allah intends for us to comprehend ourselves, then he had to give us the capacity to have an infinite mind.
Islam.
All right?
Islam. See,
Because only with an infinite mind can you comprehend you.
Islam. This is very important. You know, this is why it's necessary for it to be revealed that study is beyond reading and memorization. Okay, because a lot of people will read some of the stories about Jesus and Barata Arabo and things of that nature, and read some of the stories and memorize who he spoke to and memorize where he did the speaking and teaching and learning and things of that nature. But if they don't really apply the nature, the true spirit of the word study, okay, if they don't truly apply that, make it active, okay, because you know, all of these things that we're naming, when we start talking about divine law, we're talking about aspects of Allah, specifically the force of Allah, and the force of Allah is known as the will of Allah, and it is omnipotent. Power is when that will is in manifest, being directed by thinking things. And the problem is a lot of people get to talking about those powers, but not really putting themselves in the proper mental position to actually be able to accommodate and use such a power. So all they do is speak to the letter of the laws, such as study, as opposed to live out the underlying precepts. And so when you start talking about, well, I had to look at the fact that this was a Buddha, and this meant a guru, and then the guru translated as a spirit, and then you study a little more and you realize, well, the spirit, okay, we're talking about living things essentially, and since all living things are bound by cords to every other living thing, and I'm connected, and so forth and so on, you start to realize something by contemplation of the implications and the relativity of the meanings. See, I'm gonna tell you something more. You know, the foundation of every man's, the foundation of a man's mentality is the man's understanding. But what is it built of? The understanding of a man is built, all right, the material that we use to build that rock, all right, is called the meanings. That word meaning and the word spirit, for the sake of what we're talking about here, is synonymous. You see what I'm saying? So when a person feels that they've grasped the meaning, then they kind of are holding on to the spirit of the word as opposed to just speaking the words. So once you feel like you know what something means, you start to proclaim with all your heart, what? I understand. That's number two. When a man feels that he understands, he starts to do what? He naturally activates a power known as belief. That's number three. And when a man activates the power of belief, belief urges him to act in certain ways. This is why it's so easy for a believer, a true believer, especially one that has the title of faithful. This is why it's so easy for a true believer to recognize when people are not necessarily believers, because they'll say, oh, well, only Allah knows a man's heart. Listen, man. Allah knows what's on your mind prior to you giving a detectable expression. Me being in this physical form, I need detectable expressions, while Allah knows what's going on with you prior to any detectable expression to the finite minds of man. However, once you start to behave in a manner that is detectable to my senses, able to be measured at my level of consciousness at this time and things of that nature, brother, I can read your mind too.
Islam.
Your behaviors are the words on the page of the ethers that we're calling a physical realm. So when we're starting to deal with study, one of the things is important, and I'm going to yield because I see my brother has joined us, and it is an honor. It is an honor to share the podcast with the brother. When we start to study, one of the things I've done, and I hope will be of use, is I gave study a last name. The last name I gave to study is IREA. It sounds like a knockoff IKEA. IIREA. All right. And This IREA stands for investigate, inquire into, research, examine, and analyze.
Mm.
When you start to subject the mind to these types of practices when you're reading something, there's a lot of people that have read. How many times have you read the word the or of?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know the meaning of the and of. Don't start worrying about that. There's a spirit to these words, and even if you have a meaning, even if you have a meaning, when I looked up the word of, I saw over 30 meanings. So which one is relative to what you're trying to build? You see what I mean? So investigating, inquiring into, it takes a certain mindset to say, well, what is a Buddha? What is a master? Why did he call him that? What is this title he's reminding him of? He's letting him know that title is a mindset. It is a station. And when you've been given a station, you know what I'm saying? As long as you've acted appropriately in your current station, in more exalted ones, you won't be ashamed. You see what I'm saying? So investigate, inquire into, research, examine, and analyze. These are fundamental aspects and attributes of the spirit of study. Islam, I yield.
Islam, Islam, Islam. What's good, brother Barnesville?
The Bonzel. I think you're muted more.
You mute, unmute Islam.
Mic check 1, 2.
Islam. You here? You ain't
today. Oh, praises. Ricky, fresh as
Islam.
we this, right? Man, I want to give a praise to Allah and honors to His divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali, and honors to you, Moors, for guiding and leading out here in the social media, in the world, and in real life. Okay, man. So, man, just a brief portion of my understanding, man. We're learning, and it's able. It's the same similarity, right, to what the brother was talking about. When man knows not by being told, I got a lot of jurisprudence before I came to the temple out of Judaism, and one thing I learned is that even doing the rituals, right, you can be told how to do the rituals, but it's not the same as actually being guided by one of the rabbis during the ritual. You're not going to get the same results. You're not going to get that same feeling of transmission, right? So it's the same thing in the Moorish Science Temple of America, right? You could be told, hey, proclaim your nationality. You know what I'm saying? Right. But what about the guidance of what that looks like? You know what I'm saying? And in the Islamic mindset, right, the guidance comes in the form of flesh. You know what I'm saying? You gotta have a fleshly guide. You gotta have a guide here in person, right? So a lot of these people, they don't know, because they're being told things, and that's a lot of people who just get told stuff on the internet. Reading the scriptures ain't gonna make you wise. Even the devil know the scripture.
Islam.
Satan know the scripture. He'll whisper that scripture to you while you committing evils.
Islam.
So the scriptures, like, that's not the measurement, right, of learning and wisdom, and like, no, it's like, the application, the application of these things, being told, like, with our nationality, continuing to proclaim it, going to the DMVs, going into these agencies, you know what I'm saying? These are experiences that you gotta have and learn so you can be able to guide the next one. Right? How could I guide Moors to be, Moorish American Muslims also in the political sense, right? And I don't even know how to get there myself. It's making it to the other side, Moors. Man, there's so many different aspects to what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali gave us, but with our feathers. A Moorish American that's been able to free himself politically and lawfully, that's a Moor who deserves his feathers. Who know how to get recognized by the government in which they live in the nations of the earth. So to master, right, to be a master of learning, you got to be truthful. You got to follow the principles: love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And truthfulness means you got to know when it's time for you to be quiet, You got to know when you're in the presence of another master. You know what I'm saying? It was an incident I recall happening, right? Private incident. Uh, it was like the first convention or the great meeting of Zone that I ever attended as a Moorish American. My first year in the temple, only been in the temple for a couple months at that point. But I had the concept of master, teacher, and successors understood through Hebraic studies. And man, it was a situation. I said, man, I'm not letting my master teacher, Islam, our Emperor, Sister K, I ain't letting her walk by herself. Not walk with my master teacher. Islam.
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 Have humility to recognize. You gotta have humility to be able to recognize somebody that's able to teach you mastery. Because that's all a master teacher is supposed to do anyway, is to teach you the art of mastery. So you gotta know how to learn. And that comes with humility. If you can be humble, right, you can learn. Period. If you want to know the simple art, just be humble. And I'm not saying think less of yourself in the aspect that you can't get done. So you have to talk as much. You have to give as much input. Listen to the guide that you have before you. You know? So
That's right.
man, for yielding the floor over to me. That's my little that's my 7 cents, Islam.
Islam. So you said something that was very, very important. All right, because there's a chapter in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, and the title of that chapter is The Insufficiency of Knowledge. Okay, so in the first instruction of that chapter, it asks us if there's anything lovely, if there's anything desirable, if there's anything worthy of praise within the reach of man. And then it says, is it not knowledge? But it's a question. All right. So now for many years, while I was in the Moorish Science Temple of America, I heard, and I seen a lot of Moors who came before me and Moors who came along with me, who were being very presumptuous and assuming that knowledge was the answer to the question. Now, we are Moorish American Muslims. So, in America, they have these multiple choice question tests. Like, I can't stand a multiple choice question test. I mean, if I have to take a test, then I'm like, I bet, making multiple choice, you're making it a whole lot way easier, because I know that somewhere in here lies the answer. Well, something is going to always appear on the multiple choice question. There's going to be one answer that when you look at it, it just has no possible way of being the truth. Ain't that right?
Islam.
Okay. So in this particular question, where it says if there's anything lovely, if there's anything desirable, is there anything worthy of praise? Now, when it said worthy of praise, it only left there to be one possible answer. There's no other possible answer because we Muslim. All right. All praise is due to Allah. All praise is due to Allah. Allah is the only thing worthy of praise. Okay. So now, the only reason that I can find or discover for individuals not recognizing this is that they are not being humble to the principles of learning. They're not being humble to Allah. Okay, because as we go along into that chapter, the truth reveals itself. And it's the truth. See, truth and knowledge are not the same thing. Truth is all is a lie. Truth is the one thing that changes not. And it is lovely. It is desirable. And it is within the reach of man.
That's right.
And more likely than not, the subject find that he has it. Whereas the statesman proclaimeth that they got it. The ruler, he wants you to, he wants you to say that it's him. He want to say I'm God. Back then, that's what they used to do. See, we studying history. We understand that this particular chapter in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America finds its origin in Kemet. Okay, and in Kemet during that time, the dynastic periods, then we had all sorts of people coming into Egypt claiming that they were what? God kings. So now they want you to praise them and worship them. All right. So when we start to really learn that, well, in order for us to guide the nation, what knowledge do we have to have? There's a hadith. There's a hadith, and it is known as the most famous hadith, the hadith of Jibril. And in the hadith of Jibril, the Prophet Muhammad was sitting down. This is what it says. It says that the Prophet Muhammad was actually sitting down and that all his followers was right there with him. So if the Prophet Muhammad had all his followers right there with him, what y'all think he was doing?
He was teaching.
Okay, so while the Prophet Muhammad had all his followers right there with him teaching, the angel Jibril walks in. So the angel Jibril walks in and he places his hand on the prophet's knees and he says to the prophet, "What is Islam?" And the prophet answers his question. And he tells him, "Okay, you answer well." Then he says, "Well, what is faith?" Then the Prophet Muhammad, he answers the question. So then the angel Jibril leaves. So when the angel Jibril leaves, the Prophet Muhammad asks the followers, he said, "Man, do y'all know who that was? Y'all haven't figured it out yet?" They like, "Nah, who is he? You know, this guy that came here and talking to the prophet, talking about he answered well, who he think he is?" He said, "That was the angel Jibril. He came here to teach you all your religion." So if the Prophet Muhammad is saying that the angel Jibril came to teach them their religion, then obviously the Prophet Muhammad wasn't teaching them their religion. And Allah didn't send them to teach them nothing else. See, that's the problem today. We got so many people trying to teach other than what you was ordained to teach. We was ordained to extend the learning of the great prophet Ali in America, to propagate the faith. That's what we come to teach. But these ones that teach us some other stuff. Ain't nobody ordained you or gave you no authority to teach that. As a matter of fact, you in the way. Because you're getting people killed. Okay? You're getting Asiatics put in jail. You got Asiatics running around chasing their tails. When you're supposed to be guiding the nation. You got these ones and these individuals thinking that what you're teaching them can make their conditions better. And they see you and they saying, "Well, obviously you living good. You doing all right." You know why you doing all right? Because they paying you. You ain't doing all right because you benefiting from this garbage that you teaching. You doing all right because you taking the money from these Asiatics for teaching them garbage that ain't doing nothing for them.
That's right, Mom.
You living off of their money. You ain't living off of money that you making from this trash you teaching. And why are you charging if you could just accept everything for credit? If you could just accept everything for value, why are you charging?
What makes that possible? What makes us such easy prey, though?
What did Allah say? He said, "My people are destroyed from a lack of knowledge."
Lack of knowledge. Islam.
But knowledge of the most important thing, the knowledge of self. Islam. Know thyself and Allah, the genealogy of Jesus.
Islam.
Okay. In this particular part of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, we could teach on just that. We could just teach on that particular thing all year. And you know how much the students will benefit from just learning what that is actually saying? Like the brother demonstrated. You know how many people don't know what the words "duh," "of," and "and" mean? And it's very obvious that they don't know the meaning of the words "duh," "of," and "and." And it's very simple. And the application of the knowledge of these words and what they actually mean changes the context of everything that you read.
That's right.
It makes it all different. He said, "Know thyself." Now we know what that means. We know that he's talking about you, the individual. But then he says, "and." Now, since we don't know what the word "and" means. We don't know that it means in addition to or plus.
And then the
We don't know that.
Each.
Okay. So now when we say know thyself in addition to Allah,
Islam, if I can,
all
more.
right. And
It
then what he
also
said?
means similarly.
Okay, Islam. But then it tells us what happens, because when you say and or in addition to, like if I say one and one does what? It equates to something different. It equals two. Well, in this case, it says know thyself and Allah, what? The genealogy of who? Jesus. All right.
Islam.
According to the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Jesus being what? The child of God.
The love of Islam. A lot of people don't realize the Prophet Noble Drew Ali came to uplift the fallen humanity in the Moors, and he began to do so by teaching us to be ourselves. Why? Why would that have to be the mission? Because if a man would find his savior, he would have to look within the name itself. And without a true knowledge of this, you cannot be that savior, because man must be what he knows. Without the application of all of the aspects of study, it amounts to basically an awareness. And there's nothing wrong with awareness. However, awareness and knowing are not the same. Awareness, when someone says something, for example, because I really want to camelback off of what you said about, not knowing by being told. Man knows not by being told. Usually by being told, what we do is we direct with our words, depending on how we put them together, depending on the rhetoric and the dialect, depending on how we speak. You have to be artful in your speech. All prophets had to be artful in their speech. This is why they used parables, similes, similitudes, because they were trying to direct the soul of a man. They were trying to direct faculty within the soul of a man with their mere finite words that they can't even use to properly describe the color blue to a man born blind. You're trying to use those words to direct a man towards the truth. And so the reason why man knows not by being told is because the words coming out of my mouth serve to do little more than to maybe make you aware of some things. Awareness is an activation of the power to know, but it is not knowing. Okay, and I have to say this because earlier when I was speaking about study, I want to make sure that people understand this. It isn't about studying and read another book and look up another book and definition and look up another one and get the encyclopedia, and not just any but the Britannica and then the whatever and then the whatever. When we first started off this podcast, I started using terminology like meditation.
That's right.
Reflection. These are forms of study, but these are introspective. So it doesn't matter how much human knowledge you acquire out here. You have to take that inside and start doing some reflecting where you search the ethers for the truth of the matters that you have pulled within your mental sphere. You see what I'm saying? We don't figure things out without. We figure things out within. And so when I'm talking about this information that we have to acquire, please, Moors, wayfarers, sympathizers, and seekers after the truth that may be viewing this, understand that I'm not telling you that there's some special book that you have to get, because a lot of us have become fine collectors. Some of us think we've got to climb that right snowy mountain in Tibet and tell them that I would like the knife. That special glowing book from the hands of that levitating monk. No. When you get this information, you have to go within and then start to digest it in a process known as reflection. But understand this: man knows not by being told. He becomes aware, and after he's aware, then he activates study. He goes in and he starts to investigate, inquire, research, and examine the ethers. And the way he's able to get answers through the ethers from within in the form of ideas is when he keeps his heart and mind pure with love. Positivity, harmonious thought activity is going to be key in this, because to entertain the negative, all right, because the heart of man cannot attend at once to too many things. Okay, Allah is not willing it to be dark and the sun to shine in the same place at the same time. It can't attend. It's not going to attend at once to too many things. So if you would like the light of truth, all right, to shine on the seeds of the attributes within yourself, you have to entertain these thoughts in a positive, harmonious state of mind. All right, and so this way you can receive the fairest impressions, so to speak. But one of the things I wanted to say before I yield it is this. Again, awareness is one thing, knowing is another. I said that awareness was an activation of the power to know, and knowing is an activation of the power to be, but then you still have to act according to what you know. You have to act as thy soul dictates. But I want to say this. When you're studying, what you're doing is you're actually nurturing your first child. And I wanted to say this because some of us need inspiration. We need a reason. All right, and there's nothing wrong with that. All man needs a reason to do what they're doing. So if you haven't considered a reason, consider this. In the Holy Quran and the Moorish Science Temple of America, chapter 23, these are holy instructions for thy children. But a lot of us, there's something we miss here. Because I've heard a brother say once, well, I don't have any children, so I haven't really been going into that chapter. Your soul is your first child. Your soul is your first child. It needs to be cultivated. And the first ingredient of cultivation is to subject the child to study tactics. Okay? And it's very important because you're going to be depending a lot on your soul. Later on in the Quran, it's going to say, act as thy soul dictates, and the end will be right. But that shows up down the line in what is this? Chapter Weakness, I believe, which is chapter 42. Correct me more if I'm leading them wrong with that number. And that's way down the line. The law to study is in chapter 3. So there's things you need to do in order. Remember, you are twice a child, once a parent. And so since you're going to be a child twice, it would behoove you to cultivate your child in a certain manner that it might be useful to you in your youth as well as your second infancy. Islam.
You know, one of the things that I benefited from, growing up, in the Moorish Science Temple of America, the way that I did. And, when you speak about, these holy instructions for children, well, again, be what you know. You can't teach a child to do something that you yourself don't know how to do. You can't confer a degree that you don't possess, so we have to learn these things first and foremost. Our mind needs to be seasoned with maxims of truth. Because prior to ever being exposed to the truth, there's a spell within, in my life, as an individual, there's a long period, a long spell where I was not being exposed to the truth so much as having it actually shoved before my senses. That wasn't happening, So I had to go through the process of having someone to instruct me and to guide me into how to learn. As a matter of fact, when I finally did for the first time, because I possessed the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America for 2 years before I finally opened it. And when I finally started reading the Quran, it wasn't even the Quran that I had in my locker for 2 years. I had to get another Quran. But when I started reading that Quran, I was reading it like I read all of the books that I ever read in my whole life. I just read it from beginning to end. I didn't stop to consider the concepts. I didn't stop to try to discover the secret meanings. I didn't stop to try to, visualize how it could be applicable in my life now or moving forward, or how maybe in the past this knowledge could have helped me. So knowing that we measure time by cycle ages and that what goes around will come back around, I will re-experience this same type of thing again, and then I would be able to apply these lessons. I didn't even think to know to do that. But then I was exposed to a Moorish American Muslim studying the way Moorish American Muslims do. And I never forget And I ain't gonna go through the whole thing, but when I first approached this Mo, he was reading chapter 3. He told me about the instruction that he was reading, and just how deep and how focused he was on that instruction was different to me. I noticed it right off the bat. I was like, man, I had not been focusing on no part of that book like that. I walked away, Mo, and came back about maybe 15, 20 minutes later. That Mo was studying the same instruction. And my mind
That's right.
was crazy. I was like, wait, I mean, is it really that deep? Yes.
He's sitting at a plate of good food.
Because see,
he's sitting at a plate of good food.
You know what we start to learn is that it's not a matter of if whether or not the thing that we are studying is that deep, but the implication of the possibilities that that knowledge may have on our lives is that deep. That's the key. That's the key. When you start to think about all the ways that this information can affect your life, that's when you start to peel it like an onion. It got all these different various layers. You know, it's so many layers to the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. 60 pages, 48 chapters, 1,000 instructions, and we are studying it all our lives every day. How could I possibly be reading this small book every day and have been reading it for years, and I'm still learning from it?
Praise Allah.
And guess what? And it's not just the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. As Moorish Americans, of course, I'm using my foundation. This is my foundation. But now I read the Bible, and I've read the Bible, and as I keep reading the Bible, I'm constantly discovering more. And then I'm meeting people, and they're teaching me. They're teaching me from things that I have already studied, and I'm still learning more. Like when I first met R. Neil Bay and K. Glover Eel, I learned so much about the Moorish Science Temple of America within just my first couple months of knowing them. And I had already been a member of the Moorish Science Temple of America for years. I mean, over a decade. And I just learned so much because there is so much to know. Now, this is what I want to really get into. Now I want to get into actively learning. I want to get into the actual practice, you know, of studying things and learning things and, you know, actually being able to, you know, absorb information. All right.
That's right.
Because we're not going to just sit here and talk about how these principles can help you learn. We're not going to sit here and just keep communicating portions of our learned understanding. I want to share with, you know, the people who are listening today and the people who will listen to the record in the future, the process. You know, because I tell the Moors, y'all heard me say this all the time. The process is important, and I respect the process. You know, and I came to respect the process because of the difficult, you know, just the benefits, you know, the benefits rendered from it. Okay. So let's talk about, you know, how the process, you know, that we've, you know, went through, you know, some of the techniques that we've applied to learn.
Praise Allah. Man, as you were speaking, I was getting some more downloads, man. And it was definitely rocking out with the process, right in alignment with it. So more that I learned, right, my fundamental aspects of Judaism, right? This is things that took me out of being that Christian mind state and you know, less God man like mine that I could say, you know, and put more accountability upon myself. So there's 3 different ways, right, in tradition to interpret the scriptures from the Bible. Okay, so as brothers know, to go from line to line, pound for pound, ayat to ayat, right? You can take that ayat, you can interpret it, you know, literally. What is this thing literally saying? You know what I'm saying? Then you can take it to cosmically or astrology wise, right? Signs and symbols. What start through cosmology and astrology? What is this verse saying? Okay, and then also the deeper level of things, right? And as Moors, we know we're mystics, so the mystical level of things. Then that's the third level, the mystical level, the inside level, inside of you. Who is these attributes inside of you? For an example, when it says sacrifice a ram, what about the ram inside of you? You know, what's hard headed about you?
That's
Stubborn
right.
about, you know what I'm saying? And so, in regards to techniques of learning, that's one very valuable technique. And I'm sure I've heard more say very similar things throughout my time in the temple about studying the Circle Seven Quran, or even thinking, chanting love, peace, freedom, and justice 5 times or something before you speak, things of that nature. Nonetheless, it's a mind, body, and soul. And so for us to learn, yeah, we need an opening, right? And we have various forms of openings. You know, an opening for us in the Moorish Science Temple of America is the title of the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America, divinely prepared by the noble prophet Drew Ali, by the guidance of his Father God Allah, the great God of the universe, to redeem man from the sinful fallen stage of humanity back to the highest point of life with his Father God Allah. That is an opening. And if you're being sincere, you're thinking, the Holy Quran, what is a Quran? The Moorish Science Temple of America, what is the Moorish Science Temple of America?
That's right, Mo. Investigate.
Circle 7, what's the Circle 7? You know, divinely prepared. What does it mean to be? I've never heard this before. Most people just was finally told. What do you mean divinely prepared? You know what I'm saying? A noble prophet. What's the difference between a noble prophet and a holy prophet? Or is there a difference? You know, like these things can open up the mind, and then yeah, you'll be able to receive, you know, the gifts, the jewels, the diamonds that's been placed into our Quran. But yeah, it takes ability, as we spoke about. But yeah, these are some of the techniques that I know. I yield.
Islam. You have to just to camel back off of that, you know, and hopefully in conjunction with the brother Maurice Pennington Bay was saying about, you know, okay, so let's get down to how. Let's get down to how to do it. You know, ideas, like humans, are born when two ideas come together harmoniously. And so with this said, there's at least two ideas you want to mix together in the mind. The idea about the implication of what it is that you're reading or listening to, etc., and the idea of the relativity. How does this relate to me today?
That's right.
Not if. When you're dealing with the development of the character of man, when you're dealing with building the temple of perfected man, and you're dealing with the Moorish Science Temple of America, there is no if these lessons relate to me. It's in the matter of you toiling and digging deep enough to find out how, in fact, it does. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali, okay, in a mission that I'm still trying to wrap my mental hands around, in a mission to save a people by assisting them in saving themselves, but yet first had to proclaim them as even being something recognizable, then introduce something to them so that they would even be able to see themselves and bear witness to their own potential, and then introduce something to them that they might be inspired to even believe that their conditions can be better than they were before he came, and then act as a pattern in the face of ridicule and threats on his life and things of that nature, to be inspired to be the pattern so that people could actually move in this fashion. I can't even, I'm still trying to wrap my mental hands around these things. But here's the thing. When you're considering these lessons, you have to find how they relate to you. When the Prophet Noble Drew Ali brought the lessons to the Moors, he began his mighty mission by teaching them in numerous ways how to be themselves. If you're going to teach someone how to be themselves, a confused people, stiff-necked, hard-headed, that won't move but at the edge of a sword,
That's
if
right.
you're going to teach someone how to be themselves, and when you found them, they were so confused that you had to remind them of who they even are, then you don't have any room to be anything but simple. Okay? And so when you're teaching someone how to be themselves, everything you present to them is but an image or a symbol of them or of something within themselves. And when I say everything, I mean everything. So when you start to talk about the Holy Quran, a holy book, what you're talking about is a book that exists where? In the individuals that you're talking to. And then when you start to talk about people like Jesus, the reason why the Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali instructs us and gives us some meaning so that we might build some understanding, he says Jesus means justice. And then you start to consider the implication of that. Well, justice is an attribute. And in chapter 1, I saw here where he said that all of the parts of Allah have within them all of the attributes. Oh, so justice basically means what? It means an attribute that's within me. So now let's look at the stories. So when we're talking about resurrecting Jesus, if Jesus means justice and this is a power or an attribute within you, who's supposed to resurrect Jesus now? You're sitting around waiting for somebody outside of yourselves when you are supposed to be active in a manner that raises that attribute from a dead state of mind from within. The tomb that he's buried in is you.
Islam.
You see what I'm saying? So when you start to consider, my point is when you start looking at these lessons, since we're speaking of how to do this, understand this. When you start entertaining the idea of let me find the implication, what is being revealed in a way, in a roundabout way, because everything can't be told to you. Everything can't be revealed. The pages to that type of book would be too heavy to turn.
Islam.
That book can't exist. If Allah allowed for that book to be written and all of the oceans were the ink, it still would run dry. Okay? So you have to go in and study the pages of Allah's remembrance. You have to go to the Akashic records. And before you can enter in, all right, you have to wipe your feet. You have to clear your thoughts, words, and deeds before you take those steps onto the master's carpet. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to understand that when we're looking at these laws, when it says to study, when you see a law like studying the Holy Quran, study what? You. If the prophet brought something to teach you how to be yourself, everything is about you. Finally, the world revolves around you. All praise be to Allah. Finally, everything in that book is about you. And I'm going to tell you a secret. And the only reason when I say secret, I don't mean because it's hidden behind, there's something hidden from your sight. Okay. I'm going to tell you a secret because a lot of times it's hidden from our understandings. What's so beautiful, one of the things that's so beautiful about the Holy Quran and the Moorish Science Temple of America to me, and I stand by this, is that in the nature of any and everything you will ever go through in life or ever have gone through in life, the nature of anything, I don't care what the topic is, it's in that small pamphlet. The nature of it is in that pamphlet, and the process to solve the problems is in the pamphlet. The prophet did all of the work and laid, the table is set. He wrote the Holy Quran in order from cover to cover, following the processes. Stop looking at this like it's a book to read and understand that it is a divine framework, a picture of you that you need to study. Okay, and as you follow these rules, the reason why the brother saw the brother studying an instruction and came back and he was still studying is because it takes a long time. The cement, the pavement that you lay for a foundation, it don't dry in minutes, does it?
Yes, no.
You see what I'm saying? So he was laying a foundation, aka an understanding. All right, and so before I yield, we just have to understand, for starters, that you have to be willing to consider, you know what I'm saying? Because it costs something, Pennington Bay. Brother D. Barnes, it costs something in order to get something from the Holy Quran or the Moorish Science Temple of America. In order to get something out of the Moorish Science Temple of America at all, you're going to pay. You will pay attention or you will not get anything. And so you have to pay attention to what? Details. And these details, the reason why you're focusing on the small details, aka the essence, the underlying meaning, is because these things are where you will find those stagnant parts of yourself. Islam.
I'm going to take a read. The Prophet Muhammad, okay? The Prophet Muhammad, we know that the Prophet Muhammad was what we consider today illiterate. We talked about this today in Sunday school because it's an important lesson that I feel, not just all of the Moorish Americans, but everybody who, who knows of the Prophet Muhammad should know this about the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet Muhammad, we know he did not read. He didn't know how to read. Now, today, when we think about an individual who does not know how to read, we see that as a type of a handicap. Like this individual, in a way, is handicapped. Whereas during the time of the Prophet Muhammad, that was not actually the case. And one of the things that we know about the Prophet Muhammad, is that the Prophet Muhammad loved honey. And not only did the Prophet Muhammad love honey, but, his followers, they loved honey. And honey stimulates memory because of, the way that the sugar interacts with our body, that boost of energy. Well, today, I'm not saying this, for the Asiatics or the people who are listening to go out and start to, consume a lot of honey, because you have to be careful. We today live in a different era of time than the Prophet Muhammad did. Today, a lot of the things that we consume and eat on a regular basis have a lot of sugar in it already. So you don't want to start to eat a lot of honey, and then next thing you know, you're a diabetic. Okay.
That's right.
But here again, studying the time and the people. So the Prophet Muhammad and his followers, as we know, even to this day, were very big on remembering things. Okay. The Prophet Muhammad recited the Holy Quran. He recited the Quran, from memory. And he knew every single ayat of every single surah. He knew it, I want to take a reading from the Holy Quran, okay, because the Prophet Muhammad taught us how to study scripture. He gave us the degree that will allow for us to unlock any scripture, anything revealed by Allah through anybody. We are given the key to unlocking it right here in the Holy Quran. I'm reading from Surah 3, Ayat 7. All right. So it says, "Here it is who has revealed the book to thee. Some of his verses are decisive. They are the basis of the book, and others are allegorical. Then those in whose hearts is perversity follow the part of it which is allegorical, seeking to mislead and seeking to give it their own interpretation. And none knows its interpretation save Allah and those firmly rooted in knowledge. They say, we believe in it. It is all from our Lord, and none mind except men of understanding." Okay, so he teaches us. He says the basis of the book. Now, first of all, we have the Holy Quran as the revealed word of Allah. So this is not the Prophet Muhammad speaking. This is Allah speaking through the Prophet Muhammad. So what Allah says in the book, he always talks about the books as the book. The Bible, the book. The Torah, the book. The Injil, the book. The Quran, the book. It's all one book. Okay? And the basis of the book is decisive. Okay? It's not allegorical. It's fundamental. It means what it says. But then there is the portion of the book that is allegorical. Okay? Now, this we need to know, because there are segments of our society who are trying to impose upon themselves the idea that the book is a history book, when it's not necessarily a history book. Some of the characters in the book never existed. Some of the events in the book never actually took place. While still, when we read the book and we read about the characters who we discover when we search history, that they never existed. When we read about the events that never actually took place. What then do we do? Discover the lesson. What is it here that we need to learn? Okay. Now, if I was to just take these things as history, then I might not never dig no deeper than the fact that now I know a little bit of history. That's really right. Not history.
Just storing it up.
It's not even history. Now, mind you, upon my reading this, and where this first jumped out to me was not my first reading of the Holy Quran. It wasn't my second, my third, or my fourth. It was when I was with the Nation of Islam sitting in the study guide class, reading over the study guide for about the third time. And from the letter that the Minister Louis Farrakhan wrote that goes along with the study guide, he talked about this surah and this ayah. Okay. And that's when it dawned on me. Wow. That's how you study scripture. From then on, I applied this surah and this ayat's instruction to my study of scripture. Okay. And that has allowed for me to be able to benefit so much more now. Because I am what you call an extreme pragmatist. I'm an extreme pragmatist. Like, if it does not make sense, then I find difficulty in even stomaching the presence of it. All right. So there were things, you know, in my reading of the Bible, the Quran, that I just could not understand. I was like, it doesn't make sense, you know, like I can't find these events in history. I can't find these people, the things that these scriptures are saying that these people did. Like I know that it didn't happen. You know what I mean? You know, so I wasn't searching for the deeper meanings of this. So then stuff started to happen. When we read the Bible talks a lot about the Hebrews, because so-called Jews and Hebrews are the author of, or the authors of, so much of the canonized Bible. And mind you, I say the canonized Bible. All right. The part of the Bible that has been put together and given to the public. All is well, Islam. Now, with that being the case, there is, without a doubt or a contradiction, a bias in there. The same way that there's a bias in the Moorish literature. When you read the Moorish literature, written by the Moors, for the Moors, anyone who is not a Moorish American will identify biases in there. Okay? Now, with that being the case, the Bible says things. It says things like, the Hebrews are God's chosen people. Okay. So now if I was to just accept that for face value, if I was just to, you know, accept that God, that the creator of creation would actually create a people to love more than all the other people that he created. Now, if I was to just accept that as that, then why would I even seek heaven? Why would I strive to be good, knowing that I'm only going somewhere to be treated like a stepchild? All right. So with that being the case, this cannot be the case. Now I start to dig deeper and I start to read this. So what I discover is God's chosen people let God down countless times. Countless times. And God's chosen people suffer consequences for letting God down countless times, while God, who in the Moorish Temple of America, we know is what? All mercy. He has still been merciful to these people and allowing for them still to earn their way back into favor. Well, this mercy is not applicable only to these people. They do not have a monopoly on God's mercy. God is merciful to all of creation. Okay? The Moabites, which means what? Seed of the Father, the children of God. Okay? Without a doubt or a contradiction, the Moabites are the children of God. Now, with that being the case, all of us who are parents, we know how we feel about our children. We know our natural inclination towards our children. The Moabites have countless times let God down. While in this era of time, what did God do? He sent to the Moabites a noble prophet. He sent to the Moabites an angel. Okay? Which means what? Again, what is he showing us? All mercy. All mercy. Okay, so now we're being taught today by the angel. He came, he said he's going to bring us the everlasting gospel. Okay, so now when I look at this, when I look at this saving power, when I look at this everlasting gospel, I can't get past the part, the word that says everlasting. So now we are talking about something that has no beginning and it has no ending, which means that the Prophet Noble Ali was not the first to bring the everlasting gospel. So we say of all the gospels brought by all of the prophets, what of it is everlasting? What part of it is everlasting? Then we discover that one of the students of the Prophet Noble Ali, during the time of the Prophet Noble Ali, he wrote an article for the Moorish Guide. In the Moorish Guide, what did he say? He said that there are but few men who know what the truth is about man. Ta-da! What is the truth about man? Man has a higher self and a lower self. What is the everlasting gospel? Man has a higher self. What does that mean? That means that Allah is ever present, always with you. We can at any given time turn towards God, who is always facing us. Man, what better news is that? What better news is that? Right. Now, how do we come to learn what the everlasting gospel is? By following the principles of learning. From the beginning, being obedient to Allah's messenger, who taught us that there is a part of the book that is decisive. Okay? Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. Search ye first for the truth. Okay? Then we go into the allegory. The allegory. Signs and symbols is for the conscious morals. Listen. Signs and symbols have always been for the conscious individuals. What happened to society and what happened to man was, man started to take the signs and symbols for the important thing. Man forgot that the thing that the signs and symbols actually represented was the object of the study. Okay? In Islam, we always see the crescent moon and the star. But how often is what they represented given attention? You have individuals who would prefer to have a banner with the crescent moon and the star on it than to have in their presence the people who it represents.
Islam.
Now, make sense of that. You can. We can't make sense of it.
It's formalism at its finest. When you can't unearth the meaning, you just you perform, and the forms actually become more of more importance than what they actually stood for. So now you have a flag like the Moorish flag, red flag with a 5-point green star in the center, and the points representing love, true peace, freedom, and justice. And for some, the flag means more, and the green star in the center of that flag means more than actually understanding and embodying the underlying principles of love, true peace, freedom, and justice, and not just embodying them, but then working to expand your consciousness of the meanings of these words. Because a lot of us, we have the principles of love, true peace, freedom, and justice now, or at least we verbally proclaim them, and we're going to act according to them. But if I'm acting according to love, I'm only acting according to what love means to me. But as man unfolds, his God unfolds. And I mean, to Allah belong the most beautiful names. Love is one of them. So as man unfolds, love within man unfolds. Truth is another one. As man unfolds, truth unfolds. And in order for man to unfold, there has to be a condition. And verily, Allah does not change conditions of man until the man changes what's within his own soul. Right. And how does he do this? He engages in something. He engages in something that many of us, the generality of man, are ignorant. It's not an insult. It's me speaking about the nature of a man that's not necessarily working to cultivate their mind, right? The soul was not given to you already exalted. And it wasn't given to you deformed with vices. These must be thine, and thou must answer for them. So what that means, the level of consciousness you have, that's compensation for the work you've done. This is why it's important to ever be active, not passive.
That's right.
Okay, so since a lazy man doesn't eat, then that means if you're being lazy, you haven't had much food for thought. And a body without food does not develop its strengths. Okay? And so, we have to understand, to add a portion of understanding to the question of why this happens is people are getting stuck in forms. More people are concerned with standing. Let's just speak about our own, because I don't want to come off as radical. When I say radical, I mean unprincipled and undisciplined. Yes, all right. So although I'm not being that, the generality of some of the listeners may not understand it. So let's just speak about the Moorish Science Temple of America, Moorish Americans, and some of our own customs and traditions. Our customs and traditions and rituals are very important because they call to our remembrance certain things, okay? Our customs and traditions call to our remembrance things that are going on within ourselves. So when we stand at our feet, with our feet at a 45-degree angle, there are some that may stand there with their feet at a 45-degree angle. And then there are others that when it's time for prayer and they stand with their feet at a 45-degree angle, they start to contemplate the implication of standing upright and what that means. See, when you start to rub your mental hands on meanings, the minerals of whatever your hands are touching seeps into the etheric bloodstream, and there is a chain reaction just like taking medication. This is why we have to contemplate deeper than the forms. And then there's another that stands there with his feet at a 45-degree angle, and then there's another one that says, well, what does this 45-degree angle represent?
Islam.
See what I'm saying? What am I standing on? Then there's one that holds up 5 fingers on the left, 2 on the right. And then there's another who holds this up, contemplates, what does the 5 mean to him or her? What does the 2 represent to him or her? While you're consciously contemplating each one of these things that you're doing, what most don't understand is you're performing alchemy. You're mixing one meaning with another meaning and another meaning and another meaning. And since man travels by thought, contemplating each one of these meanings is like making a left at the light, a right at the next stop sign, veering off to the left right there, taking the exit here, this and the other. And before you know it, you enter into a state by contemplating the meaning of these thoughts, your degree of understanding, your level of consciousness. It's not just one way. There's one direction, but it ain't one way.
Islam.
Okay? You contemplate these things this way, and before you know it, you've entered a state of mind that some might call a sacred grove. The Moorish American Muslims also call it the nearest place you can meet with Allah.
That's right.
And so you do certain things with your mind. Studying helps to reveal these processes in the forms of ideas. Just think of this, Penitent Bay. When you feel what you call hungry, you entertain a thought. All right, you start thinking about how hungry you are. As soon as you start thinking about that thought with passion behind it, what's born instantly on the soul? Ideas of maybe the food that you would like to have. What's born next? Your ability to acquire that food, maybe. What's born next? What seasonings you might even want on it. You see what I'm saying? There's a snowball effect. When we start to entertain certain things, right, we actually start to give birth to other ideas that urge us to ultimately move in a certain direction, mentally and ultimately physically. The same thing happens with study. As we decide to investigate the meanings of things, while you're doing this, other ideas are born on the mind. Well, Maurice Pennington Bay talked about, well, he found that some things weren't really there, and this and that and the other, and this. What should I look for? How about we just look for what the origin of these words that they're using are? Because physical words are nothing more than symbols of something that is not physical. Think about that. When I have a thought, you don't know my thought. Okay, I'm thinking something right now. What am I thinking? But when I give my hand command to grasp hold of something and then I hold it up, you have an idea of what was on my mind now because of an expression in the physical. Okay, so we have to entertain the thoughts. We have to actually lend careful consideration to these aspects. And so this calls for us to investigate. Questions are keys. Ignorance is a lie. Okay. And so if you would have your condition to be better, contemplate that for a moment. How many of us even know what the word condition is? What is a condition? Okay. Now, when I'm speaking to the Moors, I always define condition as that which is necessary for the appearance or occurrence of a thing. But think about that for a second. What is necessary for the appearance or occurrence of a thing? Well, what has caused what has appeared or occurred already? If you start traveling down that vein, you might come to a sign that says your thought processes. Well, what is a process? What is a thought? When you start considering thoughts as seeds, you understand that when this seed is planted, it's going to unfold. So I need to be careful about the thoughts I even entertain, so forth and so on. When you start to entertain certain ideas, other ideas are born, and then you move in accord with that. If you like the outcome, keep moving that way. If you don't like the outcome, change your mind.
Change your mind. I can change my mind, Mo.
Man, like the channel on TV. Like the channel on TV. Listen, we make changes like Allah made creations. Where Allah said, let there be. That's symbolic of just adding the will and focus in a certain way. Adding focus and intention. Focus energizes, intention transforms. All we need to do is change the focus and then add a little bit of intention to the new seed that has formulated and watch it grow. Stay out of the way with negative thought processes, negative speech, negative deeds. Stay out of the way of consumption of falsehoods and things of that nature. Discipline yourself. Find out what principles are so that you can govern your garden and make sure that it remains a Garden of Eden as opposed to a wilderness where you wander for the proverbial 40 years and die off. You know, there's and I'm telling you like this. And if you're reading holy passages in the Quran or Moorish Science Temple of America, Holy Quran of Mecca that we have with the revealed word of Allah, the Bible, so forth and so on. If you're reading anything so-called holy, but you don't see you in it, then class is not in session.
Yes, this so ain't.
Class is not a session.
So ain't.
Because if Allah and man are one, then when I start reading things about things that's holy, oh, you speak my language now.
That's right.
You're talking about me.
That's right.
You know, and there's nothing like standing in a room where someone is talking about you and you don't know it. That's a dangerous situation, Mo. When people start making plans for your life and you don't even know it. You're laughing like a fool. You can't understand the language. Clear signs. They're saying, look, we about to put this poison in this food, and this food standing next to me is going to consume it. You even repeat it back to them. That's right. That food going to consume it. It's only 3 of y'all in the room, and those 2 are talking. Who they talking about? Study. Study is Islam.
Islam. I want to share a message, right? So, you know, being brought up in Islam, one of the things that we are taught, some of us are taught, that some people teach, you know, they teach us that prophets, you know, that they didn't sin, they didn't even have the ability to sin, right? And that was difficult for me because, again, I am an extreme pragmatist. So when the Quran says that Jesus is the example for man, when he says that Allah says, I gave you Isa and Maryam as of a sign, right? So I'm like, well, how can they be examples for me if they didn't even have the ability to err? They didn't have the ability to make mistakes. They didn't have the ability to sin. So how can they be an example for me when I do have the ability? You know, when I do have to actually worry about succumbing to my temptations, I have to worry about that. You telling me that Jesus, even though he was in, fasting for 40 days and 40 nights with the tempter, that there was absolutely no chance that he might have been tempted. Okay?
Right.
And then we read the Hadith, where it's revealed to us that the angel Jibril came to the Prophet Muhammad 2 times. He came to him when he was a child. And the Prophet Muhammad said, he cut me from here to here. And what did he do? He took the Prophet Muhammad's heart out and he cleansed it of all the wickedness. Okay? And then he filled it with wisdom and love and he put it back. This was when he was a child. But then he had to perform this same ritual again when the Prophet Muhammad was an adult. So if he had already cleansed the wickedness, but there was some more wickedness there. You understand what I'm saying? So what is Allah revealing to us? He is revealing to us that there will be individuals who teach us a lie. They will teach this lie, but I'm going to communicate the truth to you through my prophet. All right? So that we don't ever fall victim to the lie. Because today, in this era of time, our young people and our people are far more intelligent. They are far too intelligent to feel like they're going to follow somebody who they can't go where they're going. All right? I can't go where the Prophet Noble Ali is going. The Prophet Noble Ali is perfect. I can't do what the Prophet Jesus did. The Prophet Jesus had magical powers. He had powers that I didn't possess. You know, even though he said that what I am, all men can be, and what I have done, all men shall do. All right? So just in studying and learning these things and what they mean, you know, it was important to me as a student. Let me tell you, I want to share something with y'all, right? So I had this guy send me an email today. I mean, a direct message. So what the guy tells me is, I'm going to paraphrase it. He tells me that I have to stop. He say stop immediately. He say the Moorish Temple of America is a divine movement, as if I didn't know that. And he said that I have to stop acting like I am an official of the Moorish Temple of America. And then he said that he is the Supreme Grand Chairman of the Moorish Temple of America. So right then and there, I say, oh my God, the brother needs help. He is delusional. He has some type of mental crises going on right now. Because again, to my knowledge, who is the Supreme Grand Chairman of the Moorish Temple of America? That'd be the Prophet Noble Ali.
Islam.
Man, is you telling me you the Prophet Noble Ali? Oh my God. Well, what happened to you? Okay? If you today, if all of a sudden now you are the Prophet Noble Ali, what happened to you? Where did you go? Now, what blindeth the eye and hideth the heart of a man from himself?
Vanity.
Vanity. Okay? Vanity. I tell people all the time, being a master student, saying to the world that I am a master student, it's me. I'm trying to say that if I ain't nothing, I'm intentionally humble. Now, why do I have to say intentionally humble? Because the fact is, the way I grew up and the way I came up and the guy who I grew to be was not a humble person. I was not modest at all. I wasn't. Ain't no sense in me trying to lie and sit here and fake like I was. I was not. Okay. Then, while studying in the Moorish Science Temple of America, I was taught, teach him modesty, and he shall not be ashamed. Well, I don't want to be ashamed. I don't want to ever do something again because I have done things that are shameful. Okay? I have done things that are shameful. I don't want to do that no more. So now, in order for me, I have been taught that to avoid this thing that I don't want to experience no more, all I have to do is be modest. So now I have this tool. I have this step that I can take at will. I can ascend to the second step of modesty, or I can descend from diligence or benevolence or science. I can descend from any one of these steps, from religion back down to modesty whenever I need to. All right? In the Moorish Science Temple of America, and I'm speaking to all of the members, the faithful members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. I'm speaking to anybody who might be interested in the teachings of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Whenever you meet somebody and they claim to be a leader in the Moorish Science Temple of America, and they use terms like, master teacher in reference to themselves, or they use titles that belong only to the Prophet Noble Jew Ali, or to some ascended members, because we have ascended members today who are, we do. There are those individuals. That was a process that they went through and that they became who they are. But when you find Moors who do not know how to use these steps to ascend and come back down to earth, and they get stuck out there in the middle of space somewhere and get the calling, the master student, something other than the master student, man, boy, they tripping. And right now, I want to take the time, I want to say, I be having to remind myself to do this. Like
I might have to start
share it, subscribe to it, get this information out. All right, get this information out. That's what it's about. Get it out to the people. I just wanted to share that with y'all because it was something that was weighing on me. Maybe he listening because it always be the ones who be stalking you in the background that be saying this asinine bull crap, this old absolutely weird stuff.
Islam, and just to say only a few words here more. These Moors, this is why it's important to consider certain things. Like earlier on when I was mentioning that, the Prophet Noble Jew Ali in the 101s, even the 102s, it's saying that he began to uplift the Moorish Americans by teaching them to be themselves. And I made the comment that this being the case, everything he would bring us then would be about us, because this way, by consuming or eating of the tree, eating or feeding on that gospel, okay, that's that saving power, we could actually grow into ourselves. With this said, there's a law in the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America in chapter 2, education of Mary and Elizabeth in Zone Egypt. Since this is about us and laws for us, it reads, it says, and these your sons will be the first to tell the news and teach the gospel of goodwill to men and peace on earth. All right. A mighty work is theirs, for carnal men want not the light. They love the dark, and when the light shines in the dark, they comprehend it not. So, and I'll stop here. You talking about me, first of all, because you began to uplift me by teaching me to be myself. So when you brought me these aspects, you didn't do anything new. This is the old time religion. All you're doing is helping me to recollect who I am and what I should be doing. You didn't come. I don't believe that Allah sent a prophet so that the prophet could convince me about what someone else is supposed to be doing. Okay. He didn't come and tell me what someone else is supposed to be doing and merely want me not to get in their way. He came and he told me what I needed to be doing, and he told me in a way that I might comprehend that inner life. And so here there's a law. These are laws. And in this law, located at 2:14, it says, and these your sons translating as expressions. Okay, these will be the first to tell the news and teach the gospel of goodwill to men and peace on earth. Listen, Moors, I don't care what title you hold, because Allah and Master Men are not that concerned with your title. Okay, we're more concerned that you act according to the nature that title proclaims. Okay, because at the end of the day, Allah hands out these positions, and divine law is going to govern every event. Listen, Moors, if we are ordered by the Prophet Noble, by Allah, through our ancient forefathers, by his prophet, to teach the gospel of goodwill to men and peace on earth, what do you mean cease and desist? You are an enemy to the cause of uplifting your own people, and justice must catch you.
That's right.
The Noble Drew Ali didn't tell me that I needed to wait for a man with some sort of supreme title to allow me to express the God in me to my people. He just gave me all of the things that I would need to do to check myself, right, and practice obedience, modesty, gratitude, charity, temperance, prudence, justice, sincerity, diligence, benevolence, science, religion, and to expound these things within myself according to the true and divine principles of love, true peace, freedom, and justice. So if you catch me saying things in order to guide my people towards that light within themselves that will assist them in seeing a way of saving themselves from the unwholesome depths of falsehood, corruption, hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything that harms, don't call me to correct me. Don't call and correct me, because if I'm doing the right thing and you're correcting me, then where are you guiding me? Fools boast of attainments of things that are of no worth, but where it is a shame to be ignorant, there you have no understanding. I'm not worried about your title. I'm a little concerned about your ability to recognize the faithful. Someone needs to stop teaching. Stop breathing.
Ooh.
Islam.
Islam. You know, Mo, when we was in them crypts, we had some men walking to them temples, Mo. They came in there broken. We would breathe the words of life. They would hear the words of life spoken in their native tongue. And they would walk in after maybe an hour, 1 hour. And then we would see these same individuals the next day. They got pep in their step. They got smiles on their face.
Islam.
They have a sensing of purpose.
And the
now,
power.
Some of these men had 45 years left to serve.
Islam.
Some of these
I have
men
some calling
had
me now.
life sentences. You too?
Islam.
And when they call it, and they still, you can hear them smile when you talk to them.
Yeah.
This is when happiness has been conferred. Okay?
That's right.
Because there was no happiness there. When these individuals walked into the temple, there was nothing but the hard-drawn lines of toil. The hopeless awaiting for the moment of death. That was it. That was the only thing that they had. Okay? You and I, individuals like you and I, we decided first and foremost for ourselves that we didn't like that state of mind. So we did what it took to be able to ransom ourselves from that state of mind. In our meeting, because then there is a meeting, one meets his true self. One meets the origin of his true self in the kingdom of the soul.
That's right.
And then you realize we now have a duty. But guess what? So kindly had he united the duty to the nature, that obedience to his precepts then became the only thing that I can think about right now. I don't even want to do nothing else.
Islam.
So now when we go out and we actually living the life, when we actually being obedient and being faithful, and I'm like, hold up, where everybody else? And then you hear something like this, and you know the only thing that I can really think about, I ain't gonna front now. First I was upset. that lower self started thinking like, man, I know this joke ain't. That's how the lower self get. But then I started to worry because I don't want ones to end up like our brother Corey Cobb Bay. You know, even though
I'm not, I need you to give me some information on that because so I can investigate this whole situation.
You talking about with Corey Cobb Bay? Well, for one, okay. Well, the more he had given over his thoughts and his energy until the so-called sovereign citizen movement, which is not a movement at all. You know, the Moors need to know and understand that the individuals who even started that whole entire movement, you know, they hate you. I mean, these so-called, we know that Satan has given himself the title of God. Okay, let's get into the lesson on that. Okay, we talked about that in Sunday school as well. So, what title does Satan give himself? The answer to the question is God. So now, the Prophet Noble Ali has told us something about Satan. Satan wants to be God. Satan wants to be the big guy. Satan is the guy who wants to be the big man. Satan is the guy who wants the titles. He wants the highest titles, okay? Now, we as Moorish Americans, one thing that happens when we first come into the Moorish Science Temple of America, like we have been instructed, like John, the Revelator, had been instructed in the book of Revelations. When he eat the book, when he eat the little open book, it will be sweet in his mouth. So when we first come into the Moorish Science Temple of America, the knowledge of our true self is at first it's sweet in our mouth. We start to learn that in the past we were a great people. We were like, man, the Moors was a great people. I mean, like we conquered Spain and we brought light to the dark place called Europe. We brought light there. You know, we accomplished all of these great things, you know, and we like to latch on to that, which is good because it helps to propel us up. Then the Prophet Noble Ali, he gives us some truth in our catechism, okay? He asks us a question, okay? He says, well, who was he first reincarnated into? He said, Prophet Muhammad the Conqueror, okay? Was Satan to be bound in? No. Was Satan to be bound in?
In part.
In part. So Satan has been bound in part. So now today, we are still facing Satan. And Satan is giving us a run for our money, Moors. I mean, Satan is giving us a run for our money. I'm talking about he doing his thing. But he bound. We fighting a Satan that has been bound in part. And he's still giving us a run for our money. So what does that tell you? Why did he have to be bound in the first place? Because he was kicking our butt. This desire to be the big man, this desire to have the title, this desire to be God. Now, mind you, all of these ones who desire these titles, who want to be the big man, who want to be God, they don't want God's responsibility. Okay? They don't want his responsibility. All they know is God is the most reverenced being. The king is the most reverenced being. The grand sheik is the most reverenced being. The supreme grand sheik is reverenced even more than the grand sheik. So we want whatever title was better than the last title. So people was always making up a title where the words sound more flourishing than the last title because they are
become
acting.
antagonists.
It's Satan. Mo, we are bearing witness to Satan. This is what we did. This is Satan. And he bound. Because if he wasn't bound with his desire, and since he's manifesting in the human form, and we know that the powers that humans have, if he wasn't bound, then what would he be stopped from doing? Okay, this is what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali is revealing to us in our catechism. We have to be careful. We have to be careful about desiring these titles. And we have to be careful with individuals who desire these titles. We have to be careful with the one who calls himself God. We got to be careful with that one. Because the one thing that they don't realize, all right, in the name of Allah, the beneficent, the most merciful, all praise be to Allah. What? The cherisher and the sustainer of the world. So Allah, he didn't just have an idea, man, I want to create creation. He did it. He didn't sit on his idea. God get at it. He had an idea, I want to create creation. He created creation. He didn't just leave creation after he created it. He's now what? The sustainer of the worlds. Now we got all of these individuals who want these titles, but they don't want to sustain the Moorish Temple of America. Okay? They don't want to go out and start uplifting fallen humanity. They just like to wear turbans and like to wear fez and like to put on shirts with Circle 7s on it. But when we in the streets getting active, when we running around trying to teach ones the truth about themselves, when we going up in the halfway houses and the work release centers and the shelters and the hospitals, and we ministering, and we seeing young people and we teaching them what ills and bays is, and we telling them who they are, and we communicating to their parents to stop calling them bad children, and we getting on Facebook not for no money. We ain't getting on YouTube for no money. We getting on YouTube because we trying to shift the paradigms of people who need a paradigm shift. Where you at?
Islam.
While you desiring titles, Satan. Where you at?
They're antagonists of earthly thrones.
Come on, man.
Islam. I'm gonna tell you something.
And then, pardon the body.
Islam.
Because the reality is, they cannot hold a candle. We just gonna keep it 100 now. You can't hold a candle to the Prophet Noble Drew Ali's master students. Okay? You can't hold a candle to us. Now, we ain't just here. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali got master students all around Moorish America. Let that be known. Okay? Whether they call themselves master students or not, we recognize your work. How do I know you a master student? Because I see the application. Moorish science is applicable science. It's applicable. It ain't speculative. It ain't something that we just talk about. It's something that we can call into action at any time. And we see ones doing. While at the same time, we see the ones who just want to wear turbans and fez, want to get on Facebook, snap pictures and put selfies up all day. Okay? We see them too. They're not the concern. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali said that he came for the little ones around the feet and the yet unborn. That's what we focused on. Right now, we searching for ones who ain't never heard of the Prophet Noble Drew Ali to teach them about the Prophet Noble Drew Ali and to teach them what the Prophet Noble Drew Ali taught so that their conditions can be better.
That's right. That's
what we want. Okay? So for everybody out there, everybody listening, everybody who's going to listen, man. Mo, listen, Moors, Asiatics, man, we don't give a freak about what grand body you with. The Prophet Noble Drew Ali said, woe to the one who scatters my flock. Islam, be careful. Be careful when you start talking about who with the Jew and who ain't. Be careful. We don't give a freak about y'all grand bodies. I don't give a freak about none of this paperwork junk. I don't care nothing about these enzymes. I care about the hearts of the people whose job it's my job to communicate what Allah has given me. That's what I care about. That's what's important. All right. I respect the process. I go through the process. I love all of the Moors. I love people. I love people for real. You understand me? My favorite thing is people. All right. Y'all get on my nerves sometimes, and I be wanting to go watch the football game and get away from it. But I love people. Hey, I'm gonna keep it 100. You know? So yeah.
Islam. Listen, Mo. Listen, Mo. I understand the frustration. It's healthy. It keeps the fire lit. But I'm gonna just say this and you. In the Holy Quran of Mecca, it reads in Surah 25, Ayah 63. It reads, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, and the servants of Allah, most gracious, are those who walk on the earth in humility, and when the ignorant address them, they say peace. Islam.
Islam, absolute. Islam. The wise man doubteth often and changeth his mind. Thank you for the
Islam.
Islam.
And Islam to Sister K-Bay.
Yeah, we got Kiana Jackson Bay. We got Alicia Kia Ill, the assistant grand Sheikh Islam Sheikh. We got the brother Elwood Evans Ill, Islam, brother Morrow Ill, Islam, Grand Governor Richard Neal Bay, Islam, all praise due to Allah, Islam, Shaquille Sheikh, Islam, Grand Sheikh, Right Face, Brother Barnes Hill,
you right space,
Islam to all the Moors, Brother Roscoe Jackson Hill, Islam, Moab, Islam, all praise due to Allah for the gifts. Hold on, y'all. This the halfway house real quick. Hello? All right. Yeah, we still going through that.
That's right.
All right, Moors. Y'all know what it is. I'm gonna say it again. You know, I know I supposed to say it several times, you know, throughout that. They always say subscribe, like, you know, share, follow. You know, y'all know what it is. If you like it, like it. If you don't like it, you know, I apologize. You know that I couldn't provide whatever service it is that you're looking for. You know, we demonstrate more science. You know, we like to talk about the possibilities of man and deal in the possibilities of man because that's what our leader, our teacher, and our brother man did. You know, so with that being the case, peace and love. You know, everybody, you know, have a happy and an enjoyable rest of your day.